Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose, Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline magazine. Welcome to Punchline Talks. Today I'm joined by David Jones, MD of Evans Jones Property and Planning Consultancy. Today we're going to talk about reimagining the town centre. Oh my goodness, since the pandemic, things, shops, retail, it's all gone to pot, hasn't it? Welcome, David, to Punchline Talks.
Welcome, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start at the let's start at the heart of Gloucester, shall we? King Square. The Forum looks to be developing, but Debenhams, my goodness, what's going to happen to them? What would you do? What's the thoughts behind?
Crikey, Debenhams and their like are replicated through, most town city centres, and I think local authorities must be panicking when they saw the demise of Debenhams as a physical footprint. Obviously the non-physical bit has been sort of subsumed, but the rumours that Debenhams have been sold, absolutely brilliant news for Gloucester City, but I think let's sort of try and unpick that a little bit. So why has Debenhams become attractive to an investor? Okay, so we'll perhaps look at how it's going to be used, or how it could be used a little further. But I think Gloucester, let's concentrate on Gloucester for a moment, have been brave in grasping what they have in terms of King Square. Quite a massive area for a town centre. Compared to other town centres of a similar size, it's a big area of public realm, but a very important area. I mean, it's been unloved for many years, and there have been various attempts to try and improve it, but that's really been sort of tickling around the edge. But now with that King Square Forum, it's really concentrating on an excellent public realm, creating space where people can come, they can enjoy themselves, they can watch events, all of those bits interrelated with one another. And I think it's because of that the Debenhams building is an attraction to investors. So I've been talking about the sort of high street and regeneration of the high street and reinvigoration and reinvention for pre-pandemic and throughout, because the writing has been on the wall for a number of years. Declining town centre, what do we do about it? Now this has just given us tunnel vision. It's brought together what could have happened over 4 years into 12 months virtually, and we were not at the end of it yet. But I think where you get brave authorities like Gloucester City, who in partnership seek to develop an area like King Square, we can see what result that has. It is bringing people into the town centre unrelated to retail really, but then making investors confident that they want to invest in the city. So it's this sort of tail wagging dog sort of thing. You make that investment in the public realm, and there'll be many dissenters who say, you're wasting taxpayers' money. Where's the return? But really, that we're seeing real time here a return on that investment to the city. The loss of Debenhams, if it just stood there as a vacant block, would be disastrous. It'd be disastrous for the King Square project, occupying one whole side of that square. So fantastic news that that's being bought. I don't know what it's going to be used for. I'm not involved in that redevelopment. But speaking to others and looking at others, and perhaps we'll come to Cheltenham in a moment, because that may be a little bit behind Gloucester currently. But if I'm looking at other sites of that nature that I'm advising on, we're looking at a whole range of different uses. Trying to retain active frontages at ground floor, I think, is an imperative, and then above that, virtually anything goes, and that can be retirement, health, education, fitness and leisure, residential, and I think all of that needs to come into the mix. And thankfully for Gloucester, this has been planned pre-pandemic, and they've got lucky in some respects in that they, through that planning and energy invested in King Square, they're perhaps in a better position than many authorities or many cities I'm looking at, where they haven't got to that degree of preparation and they're now trying to catch up. So and I think the government are aware of this. I mean, many will criticise the government for all sorts of things, but let's try and celebrate where they do get things right, and they're trying. And I think with town centres and with the public realm and with the current sort of build back better mantra, and build beautiful, and concentrating on public realm, trying to create tree-lined streets, trying to look at how people interact in town centres and pulling people into town centres for reasons other than retail, can only be positive. So, we're seeing that now from national government, probably a little bit late in the process, but I think if there is an advantage from the pandemic, then it does bring all of the stakeholders together and really concentrates their mind. If we'd had, what I've referred to as a drip, a drip of decline in the town centre, then you don't really get that momentum to really get the stakeholders together. Whereas the pandemic has done that. People have thought, we really have to sort this. But the issue is it's not one body, it's not one person, it's not one organisation. Everybody has their part to play. We have a part to play in going and using the high street. I can look at it across all different sectors. So, landlords need to reappraise what they've got. They need to invest, and they need to be imaginative. The government need to look at business rates, which are now out of kilter for the sort of revenues that are created on the high street. They need to look at taxation. How are physical retailers taxed in comparison with online? And that's quite a hot potato issue at the moment that the government are consulting on and grappling with. Local authorities need to be more imaginative in their planning functions and what they do allow and what they don't allow. So they allow sufficient freedom and flexibility, but perhaps keep the best and the core of what we've got. And it's looking at then managing that public realm and perhaps replicating. In Gloucester we've got the Quays, which is obviously a privately owned retail offering in a great dockside environment. They have the benefit of a great backcloth, like a film set, that they can offer all sorts of different functions that bring people into that area. And that's what we need to get to in many town and city centres. That's what King Square will give us. It will give us that function area where people are, very hopefully attracted to. And my mantra is, people come and they will spend. But it's not the retail element necessarily that's attracting them. It's all of those other bits. So I mentioned Cheltenham earlier. Obviously, there's a similar sort of scenario bubbling with Cavendish House. What will it survive? Won't it survive? If it doesn't survive, what will it be? But then we've got the public realm of the promenade in front of Cavendish House, which I don't know if you've walked along it recently. It doesn't feel very alive. It's quite attractive. It's got very nice paving stones, some nice trees, and a minotaur. But it doesn't feel a very active area, and it's not somewhere that you necessarily want to linger. It's somewhere you'll walk through, and it's quite pleasant, but you won't linger there. So I think the challenge for Cheltenham will be to try and replicate on a slightly different scale what Gloucester are doing in King Square with the promenade and perhaps other areas in the town, to try and create those sort of honeypots where people want to come, where people want to be entertained, and that needs a very different mindset. And we're completely changing our mindset from perhaps just simple pedestrianisation of streets and places, and going beyond that to create a public realm that is very attractive and really does encourage people to come in, to thrive, to join towns, and to just come to town for the joy of it, and for something, as I say, other than necessarily just to visit a shop or just to buy a TV or skirt or trousers or whatever.
I mean, do you feel that the shops will come back, the retail environment will come back? I mean, we were doing a story the other day where £2.4 billion of fashion is just going round and round in the system. It's caught in the mail or caught at home. And of course, those retailers are sitting on that stock, losing money, really. So if they don't get a good online experience, because Amazon, let's be honest, have been absolutely fantastic. I could order something now, I'll be here by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. How does the retail retailers respond to that? How does the high street respond to that?
Well, the high street have to embrace the digital online world. It virtually has to be a seamless offering of online and physical. I think pre-pandemic, Primark, for instance, had no online offering. Phenomenal for a company, in this century, not to have an online offering, and then they, were scrambling to get that sorted. So I think those retailers will have learnt and been forced to learn, what they need to do to make it work. And I think if, let's look at the successes. Probably John Lewis already had a good online offering, and that has significantly increased, as you'd expect, over the pandemic. But it's not totally reliant upon your white van man delivering to your door. It's about then click and collect, whether it be from Waitrose or from John Lewis. So that's, again, bringing people to a physical environment where hopefully they'll do more than just pick up their goods. But I think you're right. I think there will be a remodeling of the online sales as well, because I don't think that model is sustainable, particularly in fashion. I know from my own daughter, she will buy 3 outfits from an online retailer, and at least 2 of those will go back. You imagine the transport load that creates, the handling of all of those goods, and outward, inward, reprocessing, repackaging, checking. I don't think the online retailers can continue with that model. So I think we will see a change, and I think we will see probably the online retailers charging more for that. So the sort of free delivery and the ability to send back free of charge, I think, will change, and I think that will go. So I think there is going to be a rebalance. In answer to one of your questions, will those retailers survive? I think that we don't know yet. I think there are still zombie retailers on the high street that probably will not reopen once the high streets are reopened. So we're not out of the woods by any means yet. There will be a changed retail environment. It will be a much smaller core. I suppose my hopes are that it brings back a little bit more character, and more independence will come into that market. And where there's a readjustment in rent, which I think there will have to be, because rent is derived by demand ultimately, and if demand has fallen, then rents must fall with it. So if it becomes more cost effective for an independent retailer to take space in a good town centre location, I think we will see those coming into the market, and I think that will be quite a good thing. I think we've had a long period of quite a homogeneous high street where you could be anywhere in the country, or sometimes anywhere in the world. So I think if we can bring back some of those specialist shops, but more into the core retail areas, then I think that would be great. But whether achievable, I think we have to watch this space.
Last question: Amazon, the likes of Amazon, and lot, should they be taxed a lot more? Should there be a level playing field?
I think the playing field does need levelling. On the one hand, how you do it is immensely complex. I mean, I think you don't want to act as a disincentive to smaller online retailers. So I don't think it can be a online retail tax scenario covers all. So there will have to be some turnover triggers. I don't know. I'm not a tax expert, but I think we have to level that playing field, because Amazon can operate from massive storage facilities in areas of the country that are relatively inexpensive in terms of the cost of property per square metre, but service the whole country. If you compare that with a town centre with historic high rental values, staffing levels, and all that comes with that, you can't on any level think that is necessarily fair. So yes, something needs to be done to address that balance. The downside is that could put up the price of retailing. It could be inflationary. Depends how Amazon react to it, really. But yeah, it could well be an inflationary act, which could be negative.
Last question for you. In fact, I always ask everybody who comes on Punchline Talks, and I normally give them a little bit of prep, to be honest with you. So I haven't done that with you, David. Is your top 3 business tips? Obviously, as a managing director of Evans Jones, what could you give your top 3 business tips?
Well, I suppose I can look back on, and thanks for not giving me any preparation time. So I think if I look back over the, I mean, I've worked through a number of recessions and changing circumstances, and I think change is always good. Actually, I think out of every sort of recession or fiscal adjustment that I've worked through, as a company, we've come out better and stronger. So this one, I think flexibility, offering that flexibility to staff has been absolutely key. I think working hard, investing in marketing, advertising in Punchline, absolutely essential. I think.
Love your work, sir.
I'm serious. I think it would be very easy to think, if workload is dropping off or you don't know what the future holds, I'll cut my marketing budget. We went exactly the opposite way and upped our marketing budget because I think you do market your way out of these situations, and and the likes of Punchline and your offering are superb for that.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's 3. That might only be 2. But
that's flexibility. I've got marketing and one more.
One more. I think for me, I'm in an ever-changing world in terms of legislation, policy guidance, and it's giving yourself time to keep up to date. I think it would be so easy to bury your head in the sand and just work, but I have to force myself to study government documents, look at emerging legislation, so I can advise my clients properly. So I think keeping up to date and giving yourself space to keep up to date, that flexibility in marketing would be my 3 top tips.
David, always great to see you. Thanks ever so much, and thanks for your spend as well. Obviously goes without saying, always great to see you. David Jones from Evans Jones, Punchline Talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.